Okay, hello everyone. Not so long ago, we did. I did a stream with a bunch of people about the debate between Voosh and non-compete. My friend Eric here wanted to do something similar with the debate that Dylan Burns and Haas had over China and Taiwan. Uh, Eric, you are studying to be a historian with a focus on China, right?
Well, East Asia in general. So
Okay.
China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Taiwan. So we're in the right area.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're just gonna commentate on this. Do if I just need to get my screen share going here if my computer will let me do that. Do uh, bu- 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 Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, and for those who don't know, so the two things we're gonna be seeing here. So infrared, which you're lucky if you don't know about him, is a fucking. He's a tanky, but he's worse than most tankies.
Yeah.
And infrared is just a or no, and Dylan is just a vague progressive.
Yeah. Okay. So just can you hear this?
Was first you had the
Yeah, I
Can
can
you
hear
hear
it.
that? Okay,
Yeah, I
I'm
can
gonna
hear it.
turn it down a little bit.
KMT
The B movie is
security.
amazing.
So why wasn't it?
That's
Why
everybody
didn't
go
that
on there.
democracy movement extend to the mainland?
My God, you yell a lot for a guy who's dodging a boxing match.
I'm dodging the fucking boxing
Yes,
match.
you are.
Really? So
Oh,
you
yeah,
want me
this
to
gets great.
dedicate 6 months of my time at the expense of my streaming career to train
Wait,
for fucking boxing?
wait. You challenged Washington since he didn't accept.
No, I didn't.
Pussy.
Actually,
you did.
actually,
I got the
I
vibe.
did not. No.
You fucking coward.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Look at this
coward.
fucking liar. This fucking liar
Oh,
going
yeah.
on record
You're a
saying
coward.
I challenged Voss.
Yes, you did. You called him a pussy for not accepting it.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
First
you
of
did.
all, I'm scrolling to it. He says, "Let's have a boxing match." I'll do. I'm with my boy Jackson on his roof smoking a cigar. I get this fucking DM.
So does
"Let's have a
this
boxing
ever
match."
get to the actual fucking debate that they have?
Yeah, it does.
Democracy would vanish.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna fucking fast forward because I don't care about Vosh having a boxing match with him.
With a hard close up, if you help me keep track that, 2:15, 14:15 for that.
Does get brought up
That,
quite a
who'd like to
bit,
go first?
but there is
Wait, you
actual
what?
stuff too.
Yeah, right.
You go ahead, Dylan.
Okay. The history of Taiwan is a history of struggle, whether it be the indigenous peoples' movements against the Qing dynasty, which they struggled.
Oh, can you turn it up a little bit?
One of the phrases was every 3 years an insurrection, every 5 years an uprising, all the way to modern ages as they try to make a bulwark against an invading force which is consistently tried to be aggressive against the new state of a democratic republic of China. If the question is Taiwan a part of China? The answer is yes. It is part of the Republic of China, Taiwan. When we talk about the justification from a historical perspective, you could look at the resistance movement against Japanese, Spanish, Dutch, and Chinese imperialism in what you can call Taiwan, what you can call the government in Taipei, or even the Republic of Formosa, if we're talking about the Japanese. It has a history of democracy. If you look at the Republic of Formosa, the declaration that they put out, it was very Parisian in nature. It was, we are establishing a republic in here to defend against the Japanese invaders. That was in 1895. And when we talk about the modern history of Taiwan, it is a struggle to not only develop an identity, which is a new one that is Taiwanese in nature. When the vast majority of the population now identify as Taiwanese, they have their own language, they have their own currency, they have their own judicial system, they have their own military, they have their own laws, they have really their own nation. But it's not a nation in the eyes of some. Why? Because they're playing pretend. They're playing pretend. If I was to take out this phone in my pocket and say, this is not a phone, now it functions in every way as a phone. I can turn it on, I can text, I can call, I can do all these things, but it's not a phone. I'm not being honest with you. I'm lying for any number of reasons. In this case, people are lying because they don't want to piss off the People's Republic of China, the mainland government. Now let's talk about the conclusions if someone was to say, you know what, I disregard the history.
It's kind of weird that he said, like, yes, Taiwan is a part of China, but it's its own nation later. Like,
Well, okay, so what he's saying is this. It's a part of China, but it's its own China. So it's China in a sense, but it's the Republic of China instead of the People's Republic of China.
Sure. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Historical basis for Taiwan's independence struggle in the indigenous community, or its own language, or its own identity that's developed, or the fact that they want their own democracy. I disregard the historical basis. Let's talk about the reality of disregarding that historical basis and saying that the Taiwanese cannot have their own state, and this is merely an internal affair. Taiwan is a nation of 25 million people. It is one of the most dense nations on earth, 17 when it comes to density. If you listen to the Taipei Times, it's actually first if you exclude mountainous regions. Syria was 20 million, and it ranked 67th on the density scale. If we were to drop our support for Taiwan, the likelihood of war would skyrocket, as the leverage that Taiwan has in upholding its democracy would vanish. And a war across the Taiwan Strait.
This is weird. Like, so our support for Taiwan, what is our? Who is we?
He's referring to the U.S.
Okay. I mean, like, I don't. It's just weird to me. Like, okay, it's the U.S. needs to uphold Taiwan's sovereignty, but I mean, what is the U.S. going to do for that? Are they going to go to war with China? No, they're not. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, they promised they would, but they're not going to, because we all know that the U.S. is not known for keeping its fucking promises. Ask any Native American about that.
We just extirpated ourselves horrendously from a completely failed conflict in Afghanistan. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do against China?
Yeah,
has nuclear weapons.
He assumes one thing, okay?
Yeah.
He assumes that it's going to go the same way as the Taiwan Strait crisis, if you know about that, okay?
I don't.
Okay, so basically, so real quick, the TLDR version. So when Mao took over the mainland, Chiang Kai-shek still ruled the islands of Taiwan, some border islands, most of which are still Taiwan except for one, and Hainan. The PLA, the People's Liberation, they took Hainan and all the border islands, and they tried to take Taiwan, but the U.S. Navy sent ships.
Okay.
Emerald was making a joke, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, because he's saying that MLs are sockdems.
Oh, lol, I get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just not. I mean, when did that happen?
So there were three times. I know the first one was in 1950. Let me see when the other ones were. It's Taiwan Strait crises. Okay, so the first one was in it's from 1954 to 1950. So this was like the 50s and the 60s is when this happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the United States' geopolitical power is not anywhere close to what it used to be then. Like, I just don't understand. I mean, I guess from his point of view, if he's just going to say, well, the United States needs to uphold democracy around the world. All right. But, from my point of view, the United States, what is it going to do to uphold democracy in Taiwan? Like, seriously hash that out. I don't think you can actually do that because I mean, if we couldn't even orderly pull out of Afghanistan, what the hell are we going to do for Taiwan? Like, I don't get it.
I mean, there is an argument, it's just not a perfect argument of it being an island nation because the Chinese Navy is not as strong as China likes to portray it as, but But ships can only be there for so long, and they can probably just use their air fleet to because of how close it fucking is.
I mean, how are you even gonna tell? Like, so if this gets hot, right? How are you gonna tell Americans? Okay, well, we need you. Remember how you went into the Middle East and had your sons and daughters die for no reason? Okay, well, we're gonna do that again, but this time it's gonna be in Taiwan. Like,
Yeah.
what is gonna be the selling point of that?
Yeah. It's gonna be like,
Would be an
well, you
absolute-
see, you have to care about our you have to care about democracy, except for the times where you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
disaster. Not only would a refugee crisis spiral out of control worse than what we saw in Syria, but America would actually be one of the prime recipient of refugees because the Taiwanese community has deep ties to California, and many of them would be feeling persecution, political persecution that is, from the government coming in. That is something we would have to feel the full effects of. The semiconductor industry, which the world relies on, when one company within Taiwan, the TMSC, produces 50% of the foundries necessary for semiconductor production, that would take a hit. International trade would take a hit.
I also don't get this idea, like, oh, what if China just, knocks off the Taiwanese government and installs a puppet? I mean, Taiwan is already recognized as part of China, right? So all China needs to do is just make sure that Taiwan doesn't stray. All China needs to do is put Taiwan under geopolitical pressure as a state that's part of China, as recognized by the international community. The China doesn't need to knock off the Taiwanese government. Like, it's just that would be a huge waste of resources for no real gain. Like, what is the geopolitics here? Like,
yeah, and this guy, by the way, he claims to be a foreign policy expert, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Don't quote me though.
Yeah, I've heard that's his thing. He doesn't seem very good at it.
Yeah.
And our trade with that nation would take away. America's reputation would take a hit. Not to even talk about the civil liberties that the Taiwanese have fought against.
America's reputation took a hit a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Many people will talk about the White Terror or Chiang Kai-shek's government or the brutality of it, and will use that as a justification to delegitimize the Taiwanese people and their struggle for independence. Well, that's interesting, since the people that Chiang Kai-shek purged first were the independence advocates. Chiang Kai-shek wanted to reconquer the mainland, and so he purged the indigenous people's advocates for an independent Taiwan. And those people fought for years to have a democratic Taiwan with its own system of governance. So I'm not going to ramble anymore. I have a lot of points I want to go into and a lot of questions for Haas about the conclusions that would come from his worldview here. But I'll just stop.
Worldview.
So there's 3 points I want to address amidst all of that. Firstly, let me preface this by saying there is absolutely no historical basis for the region of Taiwan to be a separate country from China.
Yes,
the
there is.
history of the relationship between the Han China.
Go ahead.
Okay, so China, so Taiwan, for most of Chinese history was just kind of some, almost kind of like the moon for nobody they knew lived there. It was just kind of inhabited by indigenous people, and it's a place where it's kind of the place where shipwreck sailors would land, and they would tell stories. It's like, no way, that's a real place, if that makes sense,
Right.
And then so China only, well, depending on whether you count ethnic Chinese people or the Chinese government. So when the Ming invaded the Qing, in 1644, there was a Chinese pirate named Koxinga, who was who was also a Ming Dynasty loyalist. So he so he sailed to Taiwan, and he set up his own kingdom, the kingdom of Tunging, and Tunging was eventually conquered by the Qing, which, by the way, Taiwanese Aborigines at this point had governed themselves for fucking millennia.
Right.
And then it was only briefly like colonized. It was kind of occupied, but nobody moved there. And then it was its independent republic for a couple things when Japan invaded, as you mentioned, the Republic of Formosa. So yes, I'd say a territory that's been ruled by indigenous people for 99.99% of its history by a completely different ethnic group that speaks a different language and who are more closely related to Hawaiians than Han Chinese. I'd call that. I don't know about you, Piper, but I'd call that a basis for a nation that's independent from China.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't have any of that, like modern Taiwanese feel that way now. They feel like they are a separate national entity.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you say historically, okay, well, do the feelings of Taiwanese now not matter? Like,
the U.S. never had a claim to being an independent nation when it became independent. You know.
Yeah.
Chinese and the indigenous people of Taiwan is a rather interesting one. The only problem is that Taiwan is currently around 98 to 99% Han Chinese. So there's absolutely no basis in the historically indigenous people of Taiwan for the for an independence movement. As a matter of fact, some of the most renowned indigenous politicians within Taiwan are the most ardent advocates for unification and anti-independence. So it's rather interesting that the indigenous people of Taiwan, by and large, are against independence, whereas some Han liberal elites within Taiwan.
So, you know, random politicians, they express the real interests of the indigenous people of Taiwan. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
Pro-American are the most in favor of independence. So this talk of the indigenous struggle against the Qing or the Han Chinese is a complete nonsensical non-factor in the question of whether Taiwan is a country or not, because indigenous people do not factor whatsoever in the question of whether Taiwan is an independent
own like
country.
half of Taiwan.
Now, second of all,
yeah,
like literally half of Taiwan is fucking native like homelands. It's kind of like their equivalent of native reservations here in the U.S.
Yeah.
History, I will concede that politics has oftentimes played a role in defining nation states. France,
oftentimes, it's oftentimes played a role. Maybe like always. Maybe a nation state is a kind of political entity. You know,
was a historically united region based on the Kingdom of France and the common shared language, customs, etc. But it did not become a nation state until it was united by the Republican ideals of the French Revolution. So I will.
But that doesn't make. There was no like unit national. It wasn't like, okay, before the French Revolution, you had like national unity but in like embryo. Like there before the 19th century, or at least before the French Revolution, there was no nation concept of national belonging at all. People just identified with their locality. So, you know, it's not
you know, it's like it's like, you know, the Duke of Brittany is my lord, and my lord before that is the King of France, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm a subject of the King of France and the Duke of Brittany, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I'll concede that politics often plays a part, politics and religion, in the formation of nations. The only problem is that China is not just a nation. It is not a nation state. It is a 5,000-year-long civilization.
What the fuck is this? What the fuck? China is not a nation state? How does that work? What?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I hate to burst your bubble, Haz, but most nation states were a civilization.
Yeah, I don't know what this civilization. What? What the fuck are you talking about?
And the thing is, civilization is a pretty fucking arbitrary term. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, pretty much.
That has endured many different types of political systems and political forms, while nonetheless
You can say the exact same thing about Western civilization, but Western civilization today is made up of a bunch of nation states. So what is this argument?
Yeah, or Egyptian civilization,
Yeah.
or whatever fucking nation states actually use civilization as propaganda. If you look at Saddam Hussein, he always talked about, you know, how we are the inheritors of, Samaria and Babylon and Assyria and Akkad,
I mean, the very idea of civilization is a nationalist projection on the past. I don't know, like the idea that, oh, well, it's a civilization, so it's not a nation state. That's fucking stupid.
I know.
Being the one country of China, the one civilization of China, Zhongguo, the middle kingdom of the world, basically, is how it conceived itself. So this 5,000-year-long civilization is not reducible to a certain political project or a political ideal, which is actually something the nationalists like Chiang Kai-shek were able to respect and acknowledge throughout the entirety of the Republic of China's struggle against the People's Republic, a civil war that technically did not end. Both Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong recognized that there is one China. They were merely disagreeing over who should rule that one China. And the independence movement of Taiwan has never been popular. It's always been a marginal phenomena. A phenomena we can infer was definitely propped up.
Who cares? Who cares? That tells you nothing about the legitimacy of it. This is because it's not popular.
Okay,
your dumbass fucking dangoid Stalinism is not popular. Okay, no, your patriotic socialism bullshit that you do is not popular among Americans, right? Does that mean that that refutes it? No, right? So this is a fucking stupid argument.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right now, hot take. Recognition means nothing. What defines a nation state is whether or not it can control the territory and is sovereign. ISIS was recognized by nobody, but they had their own laws, enforced their own laws, had their own currency, their own military, their own postage system, even their own taxation. They did everything government does. Just nobody fucking recognized ISIS or the US and most of the UN countries don't recognize the Taliban as the proper government of China. Has that stopped?
Afghanistan, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, I'm fucking tired of Afghanistan. That has stopped nobody, or that has stopped absolutely that. Like the Taliban are like, okay, and they just continue to rule Afghanistan.
Yeah,
it's force alone that makes a country legitimate.
Yeah.
Up by the Americans. Chiang Kai-shek himself had to butt heads with the Americans and engage in minor diplomatic conflicts with the Americans, who were pushing independence. The founding mission of the Kuomintang, sorry if I mispronounce it, the KMT, was one China. The notion that Taiwan would become an independent effaces the very foundation of Taiwan as a so-called separate country from the People's Republic. The founding mission of the Kuomintang was based on the ideals of Sun Yat-sen.
Who the fuck cares about the Kuomintang? Who the fuck cares?
Yeah,
why does someone living in Taiwan now have to give a shit about Chiang Kai-shek or Sun Yat-sen? They don't. It doesn't fucking matter to their lives. Who fucking cares? This is completely immaterial.
You know what? While they are still a significant party, you know that the Kuomintang aren't even the majority anymore, right?
Yeah.
Or in power, like the president is from, I think it's called the New Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Forget what she is.
And for the unification and rejuvenation of the 5,000-year-long Chinese civilization on the basis of the ideals of the modern world. Now, finally, the notion that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, a Chinese invasion of China, in other words, would lead to a refugee crisis assumes that the people of Taiwan, the Chinese people of Taiwan, are willing to fight to defend the status quo that is now in place. Every form of research and study that has been conducted among the people of Taiwan has shown that they are not willing to take up arms. They are not willing to have any bloodshed to prevent unification with China. So there's no impetus for the people of Taiwan to why would there be refugees when there would be no conflict to begin with? China, if hypothetically this would happen, would simply come in. And finally, I want to make one last point.
It wouldn't happen. So what's the fucking point? Like, wait, so okay. Well, so if there's no like basis for opposition to unification, then China would have already done it. This is a stupid argument.
Yeah, like
what?
the reason why they haven't, well, besides the times the U.S. stopped them, are so while it's not as big as China's, Taiwan's is a formidable army. If that makes sense, you know,
Right.
A pretty good modern military, you know, and you know, and their main advantage over the Kuomintang then was popular support.
Yeah.
Which now is not like it would have worked probably back when Chiang Kai-shek was still in power. But now that Taiwan is no longer a military dictatorship that's committing like cultural genocide and doing a white terror.
No.
Still a state and cringe, but it's actually really popular. Like I'm pretty sure, for example, that the homosexuality community or like the gay community in Taiwan is not going to want to support China because Taiwan is the only East Asian country where they can legally get married. If they even have sex in China, they're going to fucking prison, you know?
Yeah.
The notion that Taiwan's current constitution and laws and whatever would be destroyed upon unification gravely misunderstands the current Chinese system. The Chinese system, the precedent set by Hong Kong, is of one country, two systems. Many different systems can exist under the sovereignty of one China. And China has...
Why the fuck are Stalinists who supposedly believe in the right of nations to self-determination always like apologizing for Chinese control of Taiwan or Hong Kong in particular? Hong Kong was given over to China by the British colonial administration.
And the funny thing is, these people never talk about Macau, by the way, which is in the same political situation, because they don't. And I'm surprised they don't, because there haven't been like protests or anything. And do you know why? Because Macau is basically like the Vegas of the East, and gambling is legal in mainland China, so they just bribe the state to let them fucking continue to operate.
No. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay, we are against colonialism. We are anti-imperialist. We're for the right of nations to self-determination. But also this handoff by the British by British colonialism to China is legitimate. Like, what? What are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
The People's Republic of China has expressed its fullest intention to allow the people of Taiwan to maintain their specific system so long as they acknowledge there is only one China. I rest my case.
So the first thing I want to say, so there's a bunch of things that were wrong there, but I'm just going to start with the indigenous communities. The indigenous community make up 2% of the population. That is true. Okay, if we're just talking about people who are just primarily indigenous, if we're not talking about people who are culturally indigenous, or we're talking about interfaith marriages and the children, we're just going to talk about the 2%. They make up 2% of the population, yet 60% of the nation's special elite forces. 60%. They make up an extremely disproportionate amount of the nation's military. The military that defends Taiwan, the indigenous community, which you say, oh, many of them love the idea of Chinese invasion or China coming or any of these things.
That's not what I said.
They vastly support
the
Taiwan
KMT.
being independent. Number
They're
one,
KMT
and number
loyalists.
two, they're overrepresented.
The
when it
KMT is
comes
not
to
even
military.
majority anymore. Wait, no. Hey pal, you just blow in from Stupid Town. SpongeBob references galore.
Yeah.
Talk about them being KMT loyalists.
Also, like, isn't this supposed to be like a formal debate? Like,
Yes.
They both get their time for responses, and fucking Haas is just like it's not.
I mean, it's Hawes.
Yeah, I know.
Hawes is fucking like, and I'm not, and I don't mean this in the racist way. Just the vibe he gives off, he reminds me of like an ogre.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's true. A lot of people.
The KMT wants
let
one
me-
China.
Stop interrupting me, Hans. Okay, this isn't the internet.
Hans, he called him Hans.
Hans gets Hans gets the Flammenwerfer.
Reminds me of the thing in SpongeBob where like the hand that like used SpongeBob to clean
Yeah,
the toilet or whatever. He's like, "Oh, Hans."
yeah. Every time I think of Hans, I think of a German soldier because I'm a World War II buff, because that's what the Russians nicknamed the average German soldier was a Hans.
Like a civil
So
person.
what? I don't care if it's not on the internet. Why do
Yeah,
I
I
give
know.
a shit?
Okay, calm down, Hans, please. The indigenous community are overrepresented in the military because they're willing to defend Taiwan and the system of governance that has slowly evolved across the Taiwan Strait.
Studies show otherwise.
That's not true. By
It
the
is
way,
true.
the studies you reference when it comes to, but the Taiwanese people would not defend. According to the Taipei Times, 2/3 of the population of Taiwan have said they'd be willing to pick up arms in defense of Taiwan. 2/3 of the population.
That's bullshit.
That's just true.
That's
It's from the Taipei
100%
Times.
bullshit.
I'm just.
The
I'm playing
Taipei, if the Taipei Times has said 2/3 of the people of Taiwan are willing to take up arms, the Taipei Times is lying.
Well, then you're lying to me right now. That's just true.
Well, there's no way for us to independently verify this right now. So I'm
Anybody
accusing-
can Google it.
Google it.
Everybody at home.
The
Google
people then Google it at home.
2/3.
Look up look up informed studies. The surveys have shown, the polling has shown, people in Taiwan are not willing to risk any bloodshed in the midst of a Chinese People's Republic of China
That's
invasion.
not true. 2/3 of the population.
You have one source and multiple sources.
But
that
you
are
haven't even.
contradictory.
Okay, source one study then.
I'm Google it at home.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have one source. You have no source.
Oh,
Google
you brought a
booked
fucking
in.
binder and I came empty-handed. Good luck.
Well, that's your fault. You
Yeah.
should have come prepared.
Well, actually,
Communist
Dylan, the thing is, I don't need a binder. That's the thing. I don't need to take notes.
Communist work ethic, huh?
Yeah. Listen, the thing
Hey,
is, I don't need a binder.
hey,
I don't need to
Dylan,
cite.
don't lump all of us in with this clown.
I mean, he's not even a communist.
I
so
know
don't
that's
fucking
why.
care.
I know that's why. Don't
Yeah.
don't lump us in with him. I am a very hardworking man.
I mean, I don't have any fucking work ethic. That shit's for the birds. But
I
one
do, but
study-
only for things I give a fuck about.
nah,
From the Taipei Times, to the extent of my
I'm not a Protestant. Sorry, Dylan.
familiarity, the people of Taiwan are not. No, it's up to the audience to independently verify it. I can trust that I'll come out in the right when it comes to that.
Sure you will. Okay. So when it comes to the KMT has lost the 2 elections. When it comes to the
But the
idea that-
indigenous
let
support
me
the
fin-
KMT.
Jeez, let me finish.
Wait, you
Let me
can't.
finish.
You
No,
made
you're not
one point.
interrupting me. Okay, I'm talking whether you like it or not. So the KMT, this is about a different point. So this is why I can calm down. The KMT, when it comes to the independence struggle and whether independence is popular, have lost the last two elections. Tsai Ing-wen has won the last 2 elections in decent amounts in the Democratic Progressive Party, which is the party that she's a part of, is the Independence Party, the pro-independence party. And she has stated on multiple occasions and has been reelected on the platform of Taiwan does not need to declare independence, for we are already independent. She points to the judicial system. She points to the military. She points to the language. She points to a separate history. She points to all these things for a justifiable reason to show that Taiwan is independent and the world is upholding a facade that it isn't an independent nation. They're pretending. The thing is, if I go to Taiwan, Haas, and I call the Chinese police, the mainland Chinese police, if I'm getting mugged, they're not going to show up. You know what's going to show up? The Taiwanese police.
In a region of China, it would work the same exact way. You're not going to call the region in southern China if you're in northern China. What a stupid point. Second of all,
wait, are you really saying that the Chinese government has authority over the Taiwanese government?
it doesn't have authority in Hong Kong.
It doesn't. What?
It doesn't have authority in Hong Kong.
It doesn't have authority.
No,
in
it
Hong
doesn't.
Kong. Wait, you're
It-
telling
it
me? Are
passed
you
it-
telling me? Yeah, it does.
It has an extradition law.
Sends
Wait, but when the protests happened, there was Chinese police that were just beating down on the protesters.
Yeah.
With,
Like
what?
Yeah. Do you know what this reminds me of?
what?
this reminds me of how of when of neo Nazis who say, and this is an actual thing, by the way, that Nazi Germany is still the legitimate government of Nazi Germany solely because the Allies set up the fucking set up both East Germany and West Germany. Even though the Nazi government literally dissolved itself, but they'll say, but they were forced to. This is what that reminds me of. Just the whole cope, like, because if you're being, it's going to get to it. Trust me. But basically, it's like I said earlier. Recognition means nothing. The whole rightful government of X is stupid,
Yeah. I mean, all this shit is just like fucking sovereignty, international law bullshit. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, like it. International law doesn't work because again, like or wait, no. To compare to something else, it's kind of like the NFTs. It's like I own this NFT. You can't have it. Okay, what are you going to do to stop me?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Agents into Hong Kong. Don't yell at
the
me.
U.S. sends agents.
Lower your voice.
The U.S. sends agents all over the world. So
Lower your voice. But they do it because they're trying to exert their direct authority.
China has agents in Taiwan.
Slowly absorbing.
China has agents in Taiwan.
The fact that they are trying to enforce their authority. For example, in Hong Kong. Let's talk about the two.
China has agents in Hong Kong.
Let's talk about the one
Taiwan.
country, two systems. He thinks is so favorable, even though the Taiwanese people are horrified at
and the U.S. has agents in China.
Developments in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, due to
this is completely fucking. I don't know what the fuck they're going on about right now.
Yeah, Piper. This is the two things that we're both. Our expertise, like for you, it's world systems, and for me, it's East Asia.
Yeah.
If you boo the Chinese national anthem, you can actually go to prison for that due to national security legislation that the Chinese government has put in there.
There's similar laws in South Korea.
That came from, and I disagree with those laws.
Yeah, who cares? Who the fuck cares? Oh, like fuck, who cares? Who cares? That doesn't make it good, you fucking idiot.
Yeah,
and that came from.
So why are you blaming the People's Republic? That's Asian culture. That's part of East Asian culture.
But
what? Wait, what? What? Wait a second. So, if X does Y, and B does Y, that means that X isn't responsible for doing Y? What the fuck is this argument?
You don't disrespect the national
culture. If I go to Taiwan and I say, fuck Taiwan, fuck the government, boo the national anthem, they won't arrest me because they have a dedication to democracy, unlike the mainland government.
That's only recently because of liberalization efforts that came at the expense of the status quo at the KMT. But moreover, there's a number of points you weaseled your way out of. So I want to pin you down on those points. So first of all, you claimed that you made the claim that the overwhelming majority of the armed forces are made up by indigenous people.
I never said that. I said the special forces.
The special forces. That's not because they're pro-independence. They have always been a stronghold of KMT loyalism and fierce anti-independence sentiment. So it's a complete non-point. You mentioned the president of Taiwan say that we're already a country, you want to maintain the status quo. Then maintain the status quo. But try to change your official name to the Republic of Taiwan and see what will happen. It is the Republic of China that is the current status quo. She's saying we basically function already as another country. That's her opinion. See what happens when they try to make that formal or official, and see what the response is going to be from China. If Taiwan attempts to pursue secession from China, China will act swiftly in response. And the U.S. can't do a goddamn thing about it whether you like it or not.
Military planners disagree with you. That's besides the point.
They can't do a
we're
goddamn
not
thing
talking
about it.
strategy. I'm sure you're not a military general, okay? No matter how many Soviet caps you put on.
Then
okay?
just wait a few years.
We will wait a few years, and we'll see what happens. Anyway.
Oh my
when it
god!
comes to
Oh
the
my god!
idea that the
Hawes
indigenous
thinks that
people,
he's
they
going
don't-
to be a fucking general.
No, I think that was just like a fucking joke that Dylan did at his expense.
It would be funny if he did though.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
supported independent Taiwan, even though they were at the front and center of every single independent struggle in Taiwanese history. They're at the front and center. They were the first purge
Against the Han Chinese, who are 98%.
They were the first purge by Chiang Kai.
Wait, does this idiot not understand that? Like, yeah,
There is no
They were
Wait, what were you asking, Piper? Piper?
Oh, sorry, I muted my mic accidentally. Anyway, so does Hawes not understand that, like, if you have a national majority to whom a national minority is subordinate, the national minority will be the ones revolting against their national oppression? Does he not? Does he not read like Lenin? Like
That's why.
Like,
Well, we know he hasn't read Lenin because he
has
said
he
the Roman
studied
Empire...
any of the history of the movements that he claims heritage to? Like,
No. Okay.
Any of the national liberation movements, any of Lenin's ideas on national the right of nations self-determination? Like,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Hawes is illiterate.
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I was asking those questions completely rhetorically.
There is no continuity between the historical struggles of the Taiwanese indigenous population and the current Taiwanese independence movement, which is overwhelmingly dominated by Han Chinese liberals.
Overwhelmingly dominated by the Han Chinese.
And led by them.
It's because it's 98% of the population. But we're talking about a disproportionate amount in the military, specifically the special forces.
So why is there a disproportionate amount in the special forces, but not a disproportionate amount in the independence movement?
In the independence movement, it is a disproportionate.
No, there isn't.
Yes, it is. Anyway,
What percentage of indigenous people support the independence movement?
Percentage, but
It's not 2/3.
Okay, tell me your percentage.
It's not 50%.
Tell me
It's
your
not
percentage.
2/3.
Tell me.
It could not be more than 20%.
Do you have any data for that? Any
I'm
source?
willing to risk everything by saying that.
Everything.
Yeah.
Wow. Even your soul.
This is like just prime debate streamer like activity right here. Do you have a source? Do you have a source for that? What's your source?
I swear on my grandma's life. Wait, no, source. I took LSD and God himself told
Dylan
me.
Birds be like, "Oh, what? Do you have a peer-reviewed study for that?" And Haas be like, "I made it up."
I took LSD and God told me.
Now,
Okay, I'm already doing that by debating you right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you are. Okay, so what was the second point you made? There was a second point besides that.
The second point was about the history of nation states and politics.
Okay, well, that wasn't what I was going to, but I'll address that anyway. So even if we were to disregard all historical basis for Taiwan being an independent nation when it comes to its long struggle of independence, let's just talk about modern history then. The people of Taiwan struggled against Chiang Kai-shek's White Terror. And if any of you don't know what the White Terror is, the White Terror was a system of purges that Chiang Kai-shek and his sons until about 1987, from about 1950, I forget exactly when it started, purged independence advocates and opposition to the government. They were scared that this would jeopardize their ability to reconquer the mainland of China, since most of the independence struggle didn't really have any interest in invading the Chinese mainland and reconquering. And so they purged them. Hundreds of thousands were purged, to be exact. And those people struggled for years until the 1990s, when they were eventually able to actually get a democracy. And that history of struggle is the history of modern Taiwan, struggling against the authoritarian system of government that was in place. And then they were able to institute a liberal democracy, which they have to this day. Do you disagree with the fact?
Of course I disagree.
It's not a liberal democracy.
The military might of the Kuomintang is the foundation of Taiwan as having any political independence from the mainland whatsoever.
Yeah,
it
that's
is the arms
how
taken up
independence works.
by the KMT.
Yeah.
That's how this works. That's
Secure
why the
that.
U.S. became independent from Britain. Was
Yeah.
it won a fucking war?
Also killed a bunch of native people, but
Oh yeah, that too. But that also ties in with military might.
yeah, exactly.
And it is for the same reason that is the arms of the special forces that you're talking about, made up by the pro-KMT loyalists. I mean, the KMT are the ones who are securing the political independence in the first place. If these liberals want to go
You're not addressing
and
any
have
points. You're
democracy,
fumbling.
their democracy has not secured any.
You're not
the
addressing any
liberal
of my
democracy
points.
you're talking about has no basis in any sovereign power.
Okay, I don't.
It has no basis in any
literally-
military
you're not
power.
addressing my
The
points.
same power that made Taiwan possible
Uh-huh.
as a separate state in the first place is something the liberal Democrats have no stronghold in whatsoever. So it is only on the basis of the ideals of the KMT and the view that there is one China that has kept Taiwan separate from the mainland in the first place.
Okay, you're floundering. But when it comes
Can
to
you address the point that I'm following?
You never addressed my point.
What's your point?
My point was that the modern history of Taiwan, when it comes to the population, is a history of struggle against the authoritarian system that Chiang
But
Kai-shek.
insofar-
Let me finish, please.
But first you have
I'm
the
not
game.
going to let you talk.
I heard what
I'm
you
not-
said.
I'm not
I heard
finished.
what you said.
I'm not finished talking.
Finish.
correct?
Go ahead, Dylan. Finish.
I will finish.
Yeah.
And you'll be quiet.
Wait, really? Will I be quiet?
Yeah, you will be
On
quiet.
bond of what?
Me, because I'm talking, because it's a debate, it's a conversation.
Okay.
You gotta let me
Don't
talk.
sit here and say you will be quiet.
Well, then be quiet.
I'm not gonna fucking be quiet.
quiet.
Won't tell, if you tell me to be
Jesus
quiet, I
Christ.
won't be. How about that?
Okay.
The amount of testosterone is
Wait, no, this okay. This is literally toddler tier shit.
yeah, this is like Haas is like, oh, you want to? He's literally like about to ask Dylan to catch him outside, like,
Oh no, he is.
yeah,
You won't be?
But
No,
do
okay,
not
then
skip
yell.
past that part because it's actually hilarious. Please.
yeah.
Oh, please.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying, we said that's okay. You can keep yelling.
No, and I'll keep
You
talking.
can keep
So
fucking
the
yelling.
KMT
You can keep fucking
the
yelling.
history of
The history.
democracy-
Listen.
The history of
That history of democracy was
okay?
first you had the KMT
The B movie is
secured.
amazing.
So
The
why
B
wasn't
movie.
it? Why didn't that democracy movement extend to the mainland?
Because there's
Because it's a separate fucking territory.
Exactly.
Because it's a
There's
separate
cultural difference
territory.
between Taiwan
No,
and
it's
China.
not.
Yes,
It's a
thank you.
separate
It's
territory.
completely-
It's a separate territory
I'm
because
not yelling.
it's a separate territory. It's a separate territory because the KMT secured it as such.
Okay, calm down.
Yeah, that's the only reason it's a
Calm down.
fucking separate territory in the first place.
Stop swinging out and calm down. Okay?
You're a time waster. You bullshit and waste time.
You're not letting me speak. You
You're a
can't
fucking
listen to
time
every voice.
waster.
You need to shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ.
Go ahead, say your piece.
My
Dylan.
God. Okay. So the history, finally, for the fifth time, the history of modern Taiwan is a history of struggle against
Yes.
political authoritarianism, particularly Chiang Kai-shek. Okay, Chiang Kai-shek, he did a white terror against the people of Taiwan, and they fought for their freedom, and they
That would
earned
be
it.
really
through
fucking
blood and-
pedantic. Chiang Kai-shek is the Western name. If you go to Taiwan, they'd call him Zhang Zhanshi
All
or
right.
China. Just had to be pedantic. I'm
sacrifice
sorry.
against the government.
Yeah.
And for the last 30 years, they've upheld a democracy, which through that democracy and the consent of the governed, they have been able to elect democracies and politicians who represent their interests. And the vast majority of the people within Taiwan support continuing the status quo. And second, if you were to follow the status quo, is the independence when you check polling. The reason why they choose the status quo currently over independence is purely because if they were, and I agree with Haas on this, to declare independence right now, they would be bombed to shit and millions would die. It would be a disaster. That's a terrible thing, by the way, that a nation and its people declaring independence, even though it's already independence,
The South
would
tried
result in a bombing and destruction of a sovereign people with its own identity, culture, language that has started and continues to separately develop.
What
from
happened to the
Chinese.
Confederates?
Let's talk about that. What is the
Ooh,
current
Civil War.
evil
Another one.
that the
Another thing of mine.
Yeah.
Chinese government?
When you
is not-
secede from a sovereign territory,
You asked me a
the
question.
sovereign is
You
not
asked
going
me
to
a question,
tolerate
and you gotta be
secession.
able to respond to the question, Haas.
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between the Confederacy and when
Yeah.
you talk about this,
The evil is this, from the Chinese perspective. It is cutting off a piece
My God.
of China and basically submitting it to foreigners.
Wow.
China has endured the century of humiliation.
foreigners.
It remembers the century of humiliation. China will never submit to the dominance of Anglo-Saxon imperialists, and it will.
Taiwan is Anglo-Saxon imperialist.
Yeah, most of them are either Han, or Taiwanese Aborigines. So you have Han people, and then you have, like basically, well, not basically, but the closest thing, the closest thing is, the closest thing you have is, or is fucking, like, the few U.S. troops in Taiwan is the closest thing you have. But also with the Civil War, since they mentioned it, and that's another area of expertise of mine. The difference is, it's not like the Confederacy just existed beforehand, you know?
Well, I mean, but that was a war over slavery.
I know that too. You know,
you're comparing a war over slavery to Taiwan declaring independent. Like that doesn't apples and oranges.
Yeah, like you know, it's Taiwan saying we don't want to be ruled, and then them saying y'all Yankees are gonna take our slaves and shit like that.
The other thing is like, yes, China will never submit to the domination of Anglo-Saxon imperialism, but also, you know, we get to keep Hong Kong, which we got from Anglo-Saxon imperialism.
Wait, and also wait, hot take.
Yeah.
The imperialists never actually really went away. Okay, so first you have you know, so you have the century of humiliation, which led to a few things. Well, not Macau, because Macau was leased during the Ming dynasty 300 years prior, in exchange for them getting rid of pirates. But so let's see. So you have them, you know, like having leased, you know, territories like Hong Kong or Port Arthur or whatever, you know, like leased treaty ports. And you also have, you know, the foreign legations in Peking, you know, in Beijing. You have you have the fucking you know, any ship gets to go through the through the Huang or the or through the Yangtze River. And you have, you know, the railroads. Okay, and so then you have, obviously, you know, so you have all that stuff, you know, the foreign railroads, ports, the Shanghai International Settlement, the foreign legations. Then you have the Shanghai Revolution that establishes the Republic of China, and those territories didn't just suddenly go back to China when the monarchy was overthrown. Then Japan invades and overruns most of these territories. You know, then Mao takes power, and the CCP, while they expel, you know, the people from the legations and the Soviets, you know, hand them over the railroads and Port Arthur and whatnot. You know, you have, you know, the Portuguese still have Hong Kong, and have Macau, and the British still have Hong Kong. Then after that, you know, obviously Mao dies, and while, you know, under Deng Xiaoping, Portugal hands over Macau and Britain hands over Hong Kong, but now they're you know, much of their economy is dominated by foreign corporations.
That's the other thing. We're not going to submit to white Anglo-Saxon imperialism.
Look at all the McDonald's.
But we're going to allow Anglo-Saxon capital to come in and fucking, like, what?
Yeah, because the thing is, in a sense, like while China is undoubtedly stronger than it was during the during the late Qing dynasty in the ROC, um it's still fucking reliant on imperialists to this day.
Yeah, I mean the one of the key ways that China avoided collapsing like the Soviet Union did was to allow in foreign capital in order to take advantage of its cheap labor. Like, is that not that's resisting imperialism?
Yeah,
Come on.
and the reason why, but by the way, Hong Kong and Macau are in this situation was because that was literally the deal. Because Deng Xiaoping told so Margaret Thatcher said, we will hand it over peacefully so long as it gets to be autonomous for 50 years. And I forget who was president of Portugal at the time, but he said the same thing, and that's and they did that to avoid war with Western imperialists.
Refuse this on bond of war. So if Taiwan were to commit so-called independence from China, it would become a satellite state of the Americans. China's not going to tolerate a piece of its territory being cut off. If people try to take China's territory, they're going to be met with a swift response.
It's interesting that I say people, when the people we're talking about are the people who live there. Those are the people who would want it to be a sovereign nation. It's not the Americans coming in and
They don't.
Just shut the fuck up, please.
They don't.
You gotta let me speak, okay? My God, fucking Jesus. Okay, so the people there overwhelmingly, and there's no data you can provide that rejects this, do not want to be part of the mainland government under any circumstances.
That's not
only 6%, only 6% of the population actually want reunification eventually or immediately with the mainland government. Only 6%. That means 94%. The data you're going to cite, I don't know what it's from.
Yeah,
if it's from the Beijing Times.
Yeah. Why should I just trust the Taipei Times but not the Beijing Times?
Okay, tell me what's wrong with the Taipei Times. I can tell you about the state funding that comes from for certain news publications that publish the data.
There's no difference. So my source versus your source.
I've just told you about the funding. That's the difference.
Okay, what's the funding difference?
Taipei Times isn't funded by the Taiwanese government.
Oh, it's just funded by private corporations that prop up the government.
Okay, so there's no source that I could source
go back. First of all, there's 2 points because you weaseled your way out of the first one. Then I'm going to address the second one. The first point is simply this: you're giving this sob story about the history of democratic struggle within Taiwan. All of that still rests upon the foundational bedrock of true sovereignty. Sovereignty in the true Hobbesian Carl Schmitt sense of sovereignty, as in being able to enforce a state.
Okay, so if I'm sorry, but if your argument is Hobbes, wait, and not just that,
Carl Schmitt, who was
fucking
a Nazi.
Yeah. But okay, hot take. So Hobbes was proved wrong before he was born because of Chinese legalism. What Han Fei wrote. Mm-hmm. Well, not identical, obviously, because Warring States era China is a lot different from Cromwell's England.
Right.
But it had the same core tenets as fucking Hobbes, that people are bad and that you need a strong state to control them. And so while every single Chinese dynasty to some extent used legalism, the Qin were the only one who used it as their sole philosophy. You know what happened?
Yeah.
Their harsh policies led the dynasty lasting only 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm 20 and you're 23, right, Piper?
Yeah.
We have both outlived the legalist dynasty.
Yeah.
But so that's the thing there, So I'm sorry, but if you are fucking Hobbes, like Hobbes, you cannot support Hobbes and be a Marxist. I'm sorry.
Well,
So Carl exception. which is the KMT's military might. They have not changed this foundation, and the KMT its founding mission was based on one China. Now, the second thing we're talking about is which sources are with the polling data. Polls have shown that the majority of, it is true, people in Taiwan want to maintain the status quo. But as far as the Taiwanese people, whether they want to, along the road, eventually become independent, or along the road want to join with China, both of these are smaller than the percentage who say they either don't care or they would not care either way. So what you're saying is technically wrong. Both of these people, eventually independence or eventually unification, both are a small minority of Taiwan's population.
Okay. So the first thing is on this Hobbesian nerd shit, okay? So I don't care about any of that. I'm going to be completely honest. What I care
You're not
about,
educated.
okay, elitism.
Just
yeah, fucking Hans is very Hans. I'm calling him Hans now. I'm gonna call him Hans for the whenever I talk about him. I'm just gonna call him Hans.
Because he supports a fucking Nazi's view of sovereignty. So
Hans is very educated. Hans is the most educated person on Earth. Okay, Hans is very educated.
The guy who probably can't even fucking read.
Yeah.
It's like you don't care about China's history.
Okay, shut the fuck up. Okay, so the thing is, I can care about one thing and one thing only here, and that's the consent of the governed. And as a patriotic,
that's based on philosophy. You don't want to talk about Hobbes or Carl Schmitt, then don't talk about abstract philosophical principles.
Why the fuck are Hobbes and Carl Schmitt the arbiters of philosophy? That doesn't make any what?
Yeah,
what do you do with the philosophy before Hobbes and Carl Schmitt were born? Like Aristotle was just sitting around being like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? Hobbes and Carl Schmitt haven't been born yet.
Yeah.
Woe is me."
Yeah. Or Lao Tzu being like, wait, no. So it's literally just so Han Fei could just see into the future. I'm gonna write down what this guy says.
No.
God. Like the consent of the government.
Just keep fucking going.
I contest your foundational political philosophy. You're trying to impose a stake. If you don't care, then don't fucking debate.
Well, then don't
Simple
talk to
as
me.
that.
If you don't want to talk to me, if you don't think it's
if you want to run from the debate,
walk out the room. Walk away.
You can walk out because I'm talking about what I want to talk about.
It's my turn.
I don't care.
It's my turn to talk.
I don't care. Then walk out.
My God, you yell a lot for a guy who's dodging a boxing match.
Yeah.
I'm dodging the fucking boxing match.
Yes, you are.
Really? So you want me to dedicate 6 months of my time at the expense of my...
What?
Oh, I was just saying Hobbes' opinion discarded.
My streaming career to train for fucking boxing.
Wait. You challenged Vosh and said since he didn't accept.
No, I didn't.
Pussy.
Actually,
I did not.
No. Oh, really? Look at this fucking liar. This fucking liar going on record saying I challenged Vosh.
Yes, you did. You called him a pussy for not accepting it.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
First of all, someone came in my fucking chat and asked me. Someone came in my chat and asked me, would you fight Voss for a prize money of $50,000 or $80,000? Fuck yeah, I would.
Then you challenge Madame Banana.
That would cover all of the streaming, all of the fucking yearly costs. I could sacrifice my streaming career to fucking do that. So of course I'm gonna accept that. Furthermore, you're a fucking nobody.
Wait, why does he need like yearly like supplies of cash to fight? Did you need to train to fight Vosh? You need like do like a Rocky montage in order to fight Vosh? Like what?
Yeah. Well, you see, he needs the fucking money to edit the montage so it looks cool. I guess in hopes that Vosh won't actually fucking fight him.
Why would you need to train to fight Vosh? I could kick Vosh in like his fucking flabby ass stomach. And he'd double over in pain. Like
it's like you said last time. Vosh is literally just Jeff. It's literally just Jeff Albertson. From the comic guy from The Simpsons. That's literally who you're fighting.
Yeah.
And Vosh has some clout, so there's something there to gain from that.
I'm bigger than you.
You're bigger than Vosh?
I'm bigger than you.
How long
Who
have you
the
been in the
fuck
scene?
cares about-
You
But
got
I'm
your
so bigger
shit.
than you. How can you call me nobody when I'm bigger than you?
You got all your fucking clout from the November election. I'm rapidly rising, average 600 views. I see your viewership when I'm live. You don't have more fucking views than me. I already.
What'd you say?
Who the fuck cares about how many?
This is
Like, this is literally just a dick measuring contest. Because both Hawes and Dylan have incredibly small penises.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I've barely seen. I haven't seen any Dylan Bird's videos besides this one, and I've seen like one Hans video. So like, okay, this is completely anathema to me. Like, I don't give a shit about fucking whether Dylan Burns or fucking Hans.
I have more fake internet points than you do.
Who the fuck cares?
Fucking outpaced you, Dylan, and I've been here less time than you have.
What happened to the infrared showdown?
What happened to the showdown is that I came to LA
out of
for
business
a month.
in 1 month.
Oh yeah, I went to LA. I went to LA for a
1
month.
month.
I went to LA for a month and got COVID. That's
How can you
what
be so
fucking
manly online and be such a coward?
How am I a coward?
You're a coward because you go out like you're a big, strong.
I am. You want to fucking test me outside?
You really want me right now?
Cash me outside. How about that?
You literally fucking predicted it, Piper.
Oh my god.
Hey, Piper, can you keep it pause for 1 sec? I just have to grab the fish real fast.
Okay, go grab your fish. Cash me outside. How about that? What the fuck? Oh my god. I think if Hans threw hands with Dylan would win, to be honest. Like I think Hans would get his ass kicked. I don't think he's like the people who like front as if they can fight like the most are probably the people who can't actually fight. That's my observation.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
I'm not. I'm saying you wanna ask if I'm a big man, or then go ahead and test me outside.
You really want to go outside and fight me right now?
You can test me. You're free to test my manhood.
Dude, don't.
You're
dude,
free to test my manhood,
dude,
Dylan.
You said.
Don't assume that a fucking boxing match
Here's what
with
it said.
rules.
Keep-
Hey, don't assume a fucking boxing match with rules
You're
is
a big
gonna be
man.
the
You're
same as a
street fighter. You know what happened? All
Then
street fighters
test
when
me.
they touched
Then
the
test me.
MMA,
Yeah,
they all
go ahead,
got
test me.
obliterated. They all went away.
You know what the
okay?
best way to
problem is
win a boxing match in the street rules is?
What's that?
Bring a knife.
You asked me, here was all the conditions. You said, first, it's Michigan, it's Detroit, it's going to be at this gym, it's going to be 10 rounds. And I mean every single one of the things you asked me for that boxing
No, it's
match.
not.
And then
You asked me.
learned
Hold
that
on.
I know how to defend
I
myself.
have the DMs.
And now you're
I
a
have the
coward.
DMs.
Go get them.
I have the.
Yeah, I
fucking
challenge you.
DMs.
I see you challenge everyone else.
I have the DMs.
I thought this was a debate about Taiwan and China. Like,
We serve food here, sir.
We serve a debate. I would like a double chili. I'm gonna fight Dylan Birds on a raft. We serve debates about geopolitics here, sir.
Yeah.
Get them.
Can we go back to the topic?
I have the DMs.
Can we go back to the topic? Thank you, random person in the background. Thank you.
We can go
Here's
back to the
Dylan.
topic.
So here's what happened. Actually, here's what happened. It was 3 a.m. my time in LA. This psychopath, coping loser, he's up at 6 a.m. all night. He's seething about me, thinking about me.
What?
I was banned on Twitch. I forgot who this fucking guy was. He DMs me. He goes, what a weirdo. He goes, look at this. I'm scrolling to it. He says, let's have a boxing match. I'll do. I'm with my boy Jackson on his roof smoking a cigar. I get this fucking DM. Let's have a boxing match. It'll be fun.
And then you
3 a.m.
and then you
Then I said, okay, need 1 month minimum for training and promotion.
So you agree?
That's reasonable.
You agree
You're
with
right.
that?
You're right. But nobody told me you had experience.
Wait, so the problem is you.
Nobody told me. Wait a second. Nobody told me you could kick my ass.
Listen, hold on. If you don't
Dude, he's just making a giant ass of himself. Like everybody in the room thinks he's like a giant fucking dork right now.
no. He reminds me of the one episode of SpongeBob. You know, it's like I'm gonna kick your butt, but then he fucking remember that episode?
Yeah.
That's literally what's happening right now.
Recognize that boxing is about experience. You're a fucking idiot. Boxing is all about
Exactly,
experience.
audience. That works.
It's not a street
Every time.
fight. It's not a fucking street fight. It's not
Let's do
something
MMA then.
It's not just something
Let's do MMA then.
MMA is not a street fight either.
So literally, you're just saying, let's go into an alleyway and fight. Would you know I can't?
If
get
you
to-
want,
go to
no,
prison?
I'm saying if you want to test my manhood, that's on you.
Well, I just think you're a coward and you backed out of it because then you learn to know how to defend myself.
Why are you worth it to me?
Because you go around and you challenge all these people.
To
right?
what?
You challenge Bada Banana, for example. You
Yeah.
challenge him. You said you go to Argentina.
Yeah.
Then I say I'll go to your
Yeah,
city,
because
your gym, your community.
Yeah. Because I was willing to go there for him because I hate the guy that much. Yeah.
And you accept my boxing.
So it's
match,
worth
you
it to
back
me.
out.
So
You
somehow
backed
it's
out.
worth it to
You
me.
dodged it because you're a
So
coward.
let's continue.
You're not a real
Let's continue.
man. You just
You're
flex on the
saying
internet. That's
go
all
ahead,
you
go
do.
ahead. You can keep talking
Now,
about a
can we
real
get back-
man.
can we get
You
back-
look like a fat fuck.
All right.
So you would lose to
You
a
look
fat
like
guy.
an inbred
You'd lose to a
fat
fat guy.
retard.
Yeah. You'd lose to a
Inbred
fat guy.
fat retard.
You'd lose to a fat
You look like
guy.
an inbred fat.
And now some like fucking debate organizer motherfucker, some like old geriatric has to stand in between them and be like, okay, let's not kill this.
Okay, hey Piper.
Yeah.
Am I the only one out of the two of us who really wants to see them actually fight? Because I think it would be funny.
I don't care enough, but I imagine it would go something like Haas steps to Dylan and then Dylan like punches him in the face and then he like lies flat seething on the floor.
Do you think that you it's like Haas when he Haas when he learns, you know, Haas when he challenges me to a fight, but then he learns that I took Taekwondo when I was 11 and got a blue belt.
Nobody told me you had experience.
Let's continue. So Dylan kept asking.
Wait, I'm fat, so you'd lose them.
You look like an inbred fat retard.
So you'd lose to a
Anyway.
fat retard. That's what you're saying.
Dylan.
Okay, the challenge
Anyway.
out there. Wrap this up real quick.
He
Give
kept-
another closing
he
statement.
kept-
Wonderful.
He kept asking me 21 questions like, what's your weight class? Where do you want to have it? How many
Yeah,
rounds
because
do you
I
want to
wanted
have?
to schedule it.
And I was just responding to you. I didn't impose all these fucking conditions on you. You kept asking me.
Amaretto.
What was that?
So do you see why I have to drink amaretto for this stream now?
Yeah, goddamn.
For that,
I can't do it
then
sober.
you said 10 rounds, and I say, hey, that's ridiculous because you don't know anything. And then you were like, no, we have to do 10 rounds. I'll make sure it's
No,
my
what
gym
you
now.
said
You
is
didn't know anything about
you
it.
said a gym would not allow 10 rounds.
Yeah, I was like, of course they
I
won't.
said I can
Well,
find.
10
I said I can.
10 rounds
I
for an
said I
amateur
know of
boxing
gyms
match.
in Detroit that will tolerate 10 rounds, and I'll get that. I didn't force the
And
condition.
I agreed to it
I didn't
anyway.
force any conditions. If you had a problem with that, you could have said so.
And I agreed to all of it.
Okay, so
anyway.
I think where we've gotten to with this is there may be a boxing match in the future. With that being said, now you guys had loved a little bit about the will of the people, the history of China. Let's wrap it up for the next few minutes, closing that one if we can avoid the boxing discussion.
I did intro, he can start out.
And so we'll do that, then open it up to questions and answers at that point. So
Yeah, Taiwan is not a country. The overwhelming majority of sovereign countries in the world, if not almost pretty much all of them, don't recognize it as one. They
Okay,
recognize it
why
as a
does that
vague
fucking
breakaway
matter?
province.
Yeah, it doesn't fucking matter.
Like, you know, for example,
Dude,
That's still struggling with this.
Dude, none of the countries that used to be colonies and gained independence after World War II were recognized as countries when they were colonies.
Or
Who
wait,
the fuck
wait,
cares?
or a different one. The very few countries recognize the fucking Taliban.
Yeah.
That the Taliban's like, okay, cool, and then they keep
Yeah.
on ruling Afghanistan. Every single province they're in full control of.
Yeah.
There is no more Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. It's only the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan now.
Yeah.
The central government of China. The country of Taiwan, supposed country of Taiwan, the official government is called the Republic of China. There has never been a significant dispute as to whether there is one China or not, this issue has been forced by the Americans. And it's as simple as that.
How?
Both the
How did the
KMT,
Americans do it?
Yeah.
which founded Taiwan as a separate political territory, and the Communist Party of China, both have always agreed there is only one China. The pro-independence movement has never actually changed the foundation of Taiwan as being based in the foundational ideals of Sun Yat-sen, which are also shared by the Communist Party of China.
Okay.
Well,
The first thing about
it's funny
international
because
recognition.
so here's the thing about Sun Yat-sen.
Mhm.
So the Kuomintang also changed a lot, but so neither of them. So both, the CCP and the KMT, both claim the legacy of Sun Yat-sen. But the thing is, neither of them are actually fucking remotely similar. So when the Kuomintang was birthed, under Sun Yat-sen. So Sun Yat-sen, basically, he was think of him as kind of like a sock dem in a sense, Piper. Okay.
Mhm.
He wanted a U.S. style liberal democracy, but he wanted social reform to help out the poor of China. He basically wanted a welfare state in a sense.
Mhm.
Now he dies, and then the Kuomintang is taken over by Chiang Kai-shek, who makes it authoritarian, who's an Afghan,
Mhm.
So then you also briefly have Wang Jinwei's left Kuomintang, which is basically just that, and then you have the CCP that births as a faction in the KMT. The blue shirts did too, for if being still here, but so what happens is, so the CCP claimed his legacy, and now that the military dictatorship in Taiwan has been over, Kuomintang obviously didn't go away, but they also revamped their image to more U.S. style conservative, if that, not like, military junta type shit, obviously still bad, but, at least supporting, or in as official thing, a liberal democracy. But none of these, except for Wang Jinwei's shit before he helped out the Japanese, are anywhere remotely to the goals of the Xinhai Revolution. He's basically, so this one U.S. propaganda poster, or no, movie from World War II compared Sun Yat-sen to George Washington. While I think that's bad, one thing is similar. You know how everyone in the U.S. claims to be upholding the founding fathers' legacy when none of them actually do remotely?
Yeah.
That's basically what happens with Sun Yat-sen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sun Yat-sen was a fucking idiot anyway.
Yeah.
Like he thought that there needed to be military dictatorship as a transitional phase to a liberal republic. It's really fucking
Well,
stupid.
originally he didn't, but then the warlords did, which is still stupid. Yeah. It wasn't his original idea.
No. Like, who the fuck cares what Sun Yat-sen says?
Yeah.
That needs to be noted here is international recognition matters not at all, in my opinion, when it comes to designating whether a nation is a nation or not a nation. Because if that's the case, then the mainland was not a country until what, 1971, when it was admitted to the United Nations? Or was it a country when the majority of nations finally tipped from Taiwan to China, mainland China that is, when it comes to recognizing what country is and isn't the actual China? Because if that's the case, then what we're saying is that the mainland government wasn't a country until 1971, but 1970, it totally wasn't a country, even though it had all the trappings of a country. International recognition doesn't matter as much to me when it comes to this. Definitely when it comes to the idea of like, well, what about these superpowers that recognize it? Well, America doesn't recognize it. That doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me at all. If every nation in the world tomorrow said we no longer recognize the United States as a nation, that doesn't mean the United States is no longer a nation state.
Look
It
at
has
his
all the
face. He knows
trappings
he's
of a
fucked.
nation state. And when you look at Taiwan, it has its own language. It has its own separate history. It has its
Language.
own. Yes, you don't know
it
about
does.
70%.
So while Chiang Kai-shek did try to force them all to speak Mandarin, and obviously the indigenous people speak whatever indigenous language there is, most people in Taiwan speak Hokkien, another language distance, which I'm actually looking at right now because you can't see because I don't have my camera on. But in my left hand I have a banknote from China. In my right hand I have a banknote from Taiwan. The one from China is written in simplified characters. The one from Taiwan is written in traditional, because the simplified characters were a CCP policy.
Yeah.
So Taiwan still writes in traditional characters.
Right.
Taiwanese language, you don't know that?
How is it a separate language? They speak Han
The
Chinese.
Taiwanese, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway,
There's dialects of Han Chinese
it's
within
my
China
outro.
too.
It's my outro.
Is Han Chinese even a language?
No,
Yeah.
no. It's an ethnic group.
Yeah, like Han Chinese.
Yeah. There's so in China there's a bunch of regional languages, obviously, like Tibetan, Uyghur, Manchu, Mongol, but the main two languages are Mandarin, or if you're in the Pearl River Delta, where where Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and Macau are, it's Cantonese. But notice that none of those are Hokkien.
When you're a Dangus and you don't even know what language Chinese people speak.
Yeah, it's the language that I took in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. You're right. Okay, so the thing is, they have all the trappings of a modern state. They've struggled to build a separate system of governance, a democracy within Taiwan against an authoritarian system. They've seen the offer from Haas and his buddies, the one country, two systems. They saw it play out in Hong Kong, and the support for independence skyrocketed after seeing the result of that, because they don't want that for their future. And let's say that every single thing Haas said about the history of Taiwan is completely true. United States did not exist until 1776. Nations can be built with complex cultures and history in the blink of an eye through revolution and civil geopolitical strife. And so what I'm saying here is, since they've developed their own culture, the Taiwanese identity is a distinct identity now. And if you poll the people on Taiwan, they identify as Taiwanese majority, not Chinese. Some identify as both, I will say that. They have their own system of governance. They have their own judicial system. They have their own everything. Saying it is not an independent country is plain pretend, which I know communists like to do a lot. So,
Hey, come on! Don't
All right.
lump us in with this dumbass.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
If you think that all communists are like Haas, you don't understand communism.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I play pretend because I'm a communist, but I'm not the one pretending that there's going to be some, there's going to be some hot war over Taiwan. The U.S. is going to be able to come in and save Taiwan from Chinese conquest. That seems like a bit of a pretend to me.
Yeah, the
Thank you
U.S.
both.
has not done well at intervening, because besides tiny.
Also, I mean, liberal democracy. That's a bunch of pretend. That is a lot of pretending. Going on there.
like because I will say, Taiwan treats its indigenous people better than most, but yeah, there's totally not any discrimination in Taiwan against the Taiwanese Aborigines. It's not like the land they get is the shit land, and it's not like they're not in government.
No, they have a liberal democracy, so it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Now I will say, like, compared to most liberal democracies that have large indigenous people, like the U.S. or Canada, it's actually, like, if you're going to be an indigenous person in a liberal democracy, Taiwan is probably the best one to live in. But again, best doesn't mean good,
Yeah.
for that interesting conversation and lively. Before we open it up for question and answer, I will say, please, if you have a question not dealing with the boxing match, feel free to come forward. If it's dealing with the
I wanna
boxing
see the
match,
boxing
we'll handle those at the end. So if you'll just stand in the middle, you don't have to be on one side or the other. So. There's still a couple space.
Question for Infrared. Do you believe that it's morally right for Taiwan to be independent?
No.
And why, sir?
I don't think the people have a right to arbitrarily secede simply based on it's a betrayal of China to China's enemies. So I'm against this kind of betrayal. Simple as that.
Can I get a comment?
They could say the same thing about America in 1776, but our rebellion was moral because we knew that the system of government that the king had was fundamentally wrong. Because we wanted
It says nothing to do
off with the
material
morals.
Taxation without representation.
It's nothing to
is
do
wrong.
with the material
Taxation-
factors behind
Taxation without
1776.
representation is wrong. And as a patriot, as
Taxation is wrong.
You should know that.
The
Yeah.
Taiwan system would be preserved under one country, two systems.
No, it wouldn't. We
Yes,
saw what
it
happened
would.
in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, they passed an extradition bill, and there was a Western-fueled unrest and chaos.
It's always the West.
Western fueled, yeah.
Because people are never
Because whenever there's unrest in a country ruled by a communist party, it's always fueled by the West. The people under communist rule don't have any agency.
In order to restore law and order, the police of Hong Kong had to crack down on. What happened during the riots of Black Lives Matter and January 6th? Was this all an infringement upon the rights of the American people?
In terms of Black Lives Matter, yes.
Yes, it was.
Did the police crack down on this?
Was it
Unrest?
Was it an infringement? And many times, yes, actually. Police brutality is a major issue in this country.
Yes, but does
That's
that
another
represent
debate.
does it represent the same level of oppression?
Look, you told me to stop. I will respect
Yeah,
the
that's
moderator
another
because I'm
debate, so let's go
trying
ahead to the
to
next
control.
question.
So I haven't had much time to formulate this question, but it's something like, and I think for Infrared first, but I'd like both opinion from both, is what is there actually going to be a benefit to, say, China as a whole, or maybe if you want to say the world as a whole, for China to kind of completely take over Taiwan? I feel like the people of Taiwan, kind of like Hong Kong, when their rules start coming into play, the Taiwanese are going to be like, wait a minute, that's more kind of oppressive than we're used to. We were used to these more freedoms. There's gonna be a lot of there's gonna be a whole. It's an island nation, isn't it?
Taiwan, yes.
As a whole island nation of very unhappy people with new oppressive laws being put upon them, and I don't know how. Like, who's happy about it? I feel like the Chinese are gonna do. It's gonna be messy for them. It's gonna be messy for the Taiwan. Why do it at all?
That's why it's not going to be done. It's not going to fucking happen. This is, as Dylan says, this is playing pretend.
Yeah.
What's the benefit?
So I have to preface this. In the first place, it's none of our fucking business what China does to its own territory, because we are not China. We're a separate country, and we have to mind our own business and take care of our own people. So that's the first thing that's most important. But secondly, in case it matters, China has no intention of forcing laws or forcing its system on a people that don't want it. What China is interested in conserving.
Yeah, because the extradition bill in Hong Kong, that wasn't.
Yeah, or the time they annexed Tibet,
or when they took Hong Kong from the British,
or when they took Macau from the Portuguese.
Yeah.
Is its geopolitical and territorial sovereignty. China does not want foreigners to meddle in its affairs and attempt to seize hegemony over China's sovereignty.
You got a lot of foreigners meddling in the affairs of China, of the Chinese economy right now.
Yeah, I will say, as somebody who visited, there's a lot of fucking McDonald's and Western corporations in Beijing and Shanghai. There's an entire district of them, actually.
Yeah.
China's territory and so on and so on. China
Chinese
wants to
McDonald's
protect
rules, by the
itself
way,
from people who have a history of express military hostility and antagonism toward China, simply for being an independent rising power that is disrupting the American world order of hegemony. So China's first
American hegemony hasn't been a thing since at least the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
and foremost interest is preserving sovereignty. Its interest is not imposing an ideology or system, which is not of any real importance.
But
China
they did.
knows that it can't impose a system on a people that don't want it. So
But
that's
they
why
have.
the one
Yeah.
country, two systems was even implemented in the first place.
So when it comes to the idea that it's not really our issue, we have had a historical relationship with the Taiwanese government that goes past multiple administrations. A refugee crisis across from the Taiwan Strait would be a disaster, not only for the world, but especially the United States, considering.
Yeah, I really think the United States does a really good job of, patching things up globally. We did an awesome job in Afghanistan, awesome job in Iraq, awesome job in Vietnam,
a fucking phenomenal job in Somalia.
awesome job in Korea, fucking awesome job in Yemen, awesome job in Palestine. High marks.
Awesome job in Ukraine.
Ukraine. High marks for U.S. Intervention on behalf of liberal democracy.
All of Latin America.
Yeah. High marks.
That Taiwanese community is quite large in California. I'm pretty sure a lot of them would like to take their family members because they wouldn't want to be either politically persecuted or blown up. Since again, if you were to exclude the mountainous terrain, Taiwan would be the #1 most dense country in the world with a population of 25 million. To put that in perspective, Syria had a population of 20 million before the Civil War and was the 67th most dense country in the world. And so when we talk about what would be a largely air campaign in Taiwan, that would be a humanitarian disaster, creates a massive refugee crisis. This doesn't even need to talk about our trade relationship with Taiwan and our interest there, or semiconductors with 50% of the world's semiconductors.
Yeah, what about our trade relationship with China? What about the fact that China is the world's factory?
Yeah. Or, yeah, like, again, what I'm holding in my hands right now, the fucking cup I'm drinking the amaretto out of, because while I do have a classy drink, I'm not rich enough to have a classy thick cup for it.
Yeah.
Says made in China.
Yeah.
Or this hat made in China. My clothes made in China.
No.
Like, basically everything at Walmart, all of it. There's nothing at Walmart that isn't from China.
Yeah.
Being produced by the TSMC, which of course is based in Taiwan, which right now with supply line shortages, that being bombed to shit, or us not having access to that, would also be a massive issue for the United States when it comes to the idea it's not our business. Also, China's extremely hypocritical when it comes to this point, because it says that, well, this is a civil war, and Haas correctly technically states that it is technically a historical ongoing civil war. Not even in the same way that it is in Korea, though, because there's tourism across lines, there's workers from Taiwan working within there. The tourism industry is gigantic. They trade over like $200 billion, and I think in the last years alone. So obviously,
Piper.
a civil war where you're trading.
Like, did you know that most tourists to Taiwan come from China?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Because tourism between the two countries is pretty, like, like for countries that are like, which they are officially at war, but yeah, no, like the Chinese government. I remember in Chinese class just screwing around and reading through our the dictionary, and one of the pages was different documents that you can have issued by the Chinese government, and one of them is you get to go to what's it called? Oh yeah, is like a special document to go to Taiwan for vacation.
Nice.
Yeah, so China's not going to do it because they make a ton of money from it.
Yeah.
tourism. It doesn't really sound like a very bloody civil war that's currently going on. There has been violence in 75 years, but let's pretend that it's a civil war for a moment, right? That it's not just, on paper. In Myanmar right now, there is what is, if you would be honest, a civil war. 1/3 of the country, according to certain analysts, 1/3 of the country, according to certain analysts, is controlled by rebel forces that are fighting against a military dictatorship that overthrew the democratically elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi.
This is irrelevant.
Let me finish. Chinese involvement in the civil war.
What does that involve?
Let me finish.
Military intervention or arms deals?
So, they have sent aid to the military government.
That's exactly
They have sold weapons to the military government,
it.
which they then use to not only ethnically cleanse minorities in the country, but put
Yeah,
them-
Yeah, the Democratic leader that was displaced, the genocide of the Rohingya, the displacement of the Rohingya, she was complicit in that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, liberal democracy, success, high marks.
Yeah, but it's also stupid that Haas would support this, because the reason why the Rohingya are an easy target is not, well, obviously their ethnicity, but there are a bunch of ethnic minorities like in Myanmar. But so since it's such an ethnically diverse country, when it became independent, they were like, well, what makes us Burmese? And Burmese, and the government said, the one thing that we all have in common is we're Buddhists. So the Rohingya being Muslims were an easy target, and I find that fucking horrific, since isn't Haas a Muslim?
Yeah, Haas is a Muslim.
So that's two Muslim genocides that he's supporting.
Yeah.
rebellions. And what is our involvement when it comes to Taiwan through the Taiwan Relations Act, for example?
Much worse.
Mostly sending them weapons through trade deals, the exact same thing they're doing with their involvement in an active, ongoing civil war where people are dying right now. If they're allowed to do it, why are we not allowed to do it?
U.S. troops are in Taiwan.
U.S. troops are in Taiwan.
Not officially, but they are.
And what about, you want to talk about?
They are secretly and covertly.
They are secretly and covertly
Yes.
for training operations. Well, maybe because they're an independent nation, they're allowed to
Yeah,
have
but
that.
there's still U.S. troops.
Well, China, you're saying China.
What'd you say?
Whether or not they're training doesn't fucking mean that.
Yeah, I know, are we really gonna go down the road of having thousands of military bases everywhere? That's a good thing. Like, really?
China's two-faced for selling arms and giving aid to a
Yeah,
government
because what they do is
But it has friendly relations with that government.
They have and an ongoing civil war. They're taking sides. Also,
The status quo in that country is the government. It's the government that's recognized.
You're telling me the military dictatorship, which
China
overthrew a democracy, is the
You don't
status quo.
understand Chinese.
The democratic fucking displacement of Rohingya Muslims. Very epic.
It's the status quo of Myanmar. What are you
guess
talking
what?
about?
Officially
It's a
speaking,
revolution.
that is the government of Myanmar.
Officially,
China works.
not recognized by many
China
international forces,
works.
and you care about international
China
relations.
works with governments that are in power. China works. China works with the Shah.
Yeah, because that means two things. Remember, now obviously Maoists fucking suck.
Yeah.
But remember when China aided the fucking monarchy of Nepal?
Remember when China aided? Or I don't know, maybe not aided, but remember when China? Remember when Mao supported Pol Pot and Pinochet? That was epic.
Yeah. Wait. Remember when? Okay, I go on. Remember when China supported the Mujahideen?
Yeah, very epic.
Oh wait, and one more. Remember how China is currently recognizing the Taliban regime as the because yes, they are supporting the status quo government.
Yeah, that's
but
great. Love
that's
it.
not a good thing. That's the fucking that's. I mean, obviously, both options in Myanmar suck, but that's also
I love
Taliban.
this thing where it's like communists who are supposed to be about overturning the status quo are like, well, China is just respecting the status quo, and that's why it's okay. Like, amazing communism.
Iran, and then it worked with the Ayatollahs. China works with
Yeah.
whoever's in power, and it doesn't care about.
Yeah,
the
working with the
internal
Ayatollahs is not a good thing.
conflict.
America just works with what's in power in Taipei.
No, it doesn't, because
Yes, it does.
America
We do.
because America has a specific agenda to meddle in China's affairs and promote independence of China.
And the Chinese are meddling in the
No, they
affairs of
don't.
the empire.
China's very pragmatic.
Wait,
in diplomatic
what about
relations.
with the burning
China
down of
does-
factories? And the only time the Chinese got interested, it was like, never mind.
This is literally just my imperialism is better than your imperialism. Like,
No, in the okay. So I'm gonna totally steal from George Carlin here. My imperialism can kick your imperialism's ass.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Really need to stop was when their factories getting burned down. They don't care that their guns are being used to mow down protesters.
Yeah, they
in
care.
Myanmar.
China
They
cares.
don't care.
Hey,
they will help them
We could learn from China. China
to help mow down protesters.
China cares about China. America should care about America.
So we should sell more weapons to Saudi Arabia then, because it's very profitable.
All right, I think that's a good stop point there. We'll have the next question, sir.
So this is for both of you, and it's kind of a broader question. We touched on it a bit, but I want to ask directly, kind of what justifies sovereignty for a government? What legitimizes a
Nothing.
government? What kind of factors go into
Nothing.
whether we should support government? This is an issue
Nothing.
not just in Taiwan, but also across the world, like in Ukraine,
Yeah.
in Israel and Palestine.
So this is a philosophical question, and the German theorist Carl Schmitt does not
oh my god.
Okay,
define sovereignty based on
Nazi
some kind
opinion
of
discarded.
external measurement. Sovereignty is, in short, as Hobbes pointed out,
Hobbes'
based on
opinion
material
discarded.
realities. Sovereignty is based on a
Sovereignty
monopoly.
isn't based on material reality. Sovereignty is just a legal fiction. So the only way you get sovereignty is by other sovereign powers recognizing your sovereignty. And so that means it's not really sovereignty in the terms of actually having complete domain over the territory that you govern. It's sovereignty in terms of, well, the international system allows you to govern that territory.
Yeah. So,
It's a complete fiction. It's one of the most worthless social constructs that exists.
yeah,
It's
like
literally
it,
just the people in power are recognized to have power, and that's it.
Yeah. It's So I'm gonna make two quick comparisons. So they brought up the French Revolution earlier, and that is another thing of my my area of expertise. It's just like how all the Catholics said, since the Pope said that the Republic was illegitimate,
Yeah.
saying, well, Louis the 16th is the rightful king of France. This
Yeah.
government is illegal, or saying,
Yeah.
how during the Spanish Armada, Philip is like, Elizabeth is a Protestant, therefore, her rule of England is illegal. It's illegitimate, or in the Middle Ages, it's like, that guy's a usurper. I'm the rightful king of pee pee poo poo land,
Yeah.
On violence. It's based on force. It's based on might. It's not based on some independent source verifying the sovereignty. Now, you could talk about other countries recognizing your sovereignty, which is an important thing, but sovereignty is based in material, not moral or ethical realities.
Yeah, and the material reality is that Taiwan's government is what controls the island of Taiwan. That's material
Then let them
reality.
try and
Therefore,
declare-
recognize it as a nation.
Then
Like your own system.
let them try and declare independence and see what happens.
Say, wait, so if it walks like a horse, talks like a horse, and it's everything like a horse, but it doesn't say I'm a horse, is it or is it not a horse?
It's not a horse yet because it's not allowed to have U.S. troops on its soil officially.
So if everybody in here said this isn't a phone, would you be like, oh, I guess it's
Taiwan is literally restricted from doing things a sovereign nation could do officially.
because the Chinese government has tried to do that on the international stage. But by the way,
It can't have troops on its soil. It cannot have U.S. troops on its soil.
So what you're saying is that the Chinese government, the mainland government in 1960,
It doesn't walk
was
like
not-
a horse.
Let me ask you a
It
question.
doesn't walk like a
Was
horse.
the
A
Chinese
horse can have troops on its soil officially.
I don't know.
What?
I don't know of any horse that has troops on its soil. But what I will say, if that's what you're saying, then you would have to recognize that in 1960, the government in the mainland China was not a legitimate nation. because it did not have large-scale international recognition or a seat at the United Nations.
The People's Republic of China was not a nation because it didn't have international recognition.
Yeah, 1960.
Well, that didn't reflect the material reality, which the world eventually woke up and adjusted to.
Why are
That the
people so
overwhelming
fucking
majority
dumb?
of the Chinese people are under the sovereignty of the Communist Party. So eventually, they woke up to that reality. And is that going to happen with Taiwan?
International recognition.
Wait and
happens
see.
until it doesn't.
Keep waiting for that to happen for Taiwan.
All right, back there with the
Keep waiting.
recognition. So, T-Chop, you're next, sir.
You mentioned that China doesn't like to impose things on people that they don't want it, something like that. Except the Uyghurs, Taiwan, Hong Kong, they're building islands. Where does China's border actually end? Like, as you mentioned, the early
The
Chinese-
historical Qing borders that were carved up by the
Okay,
British
pause,
and other
pause.
colonial.
Okay. So if you don't know, that would involve a couple things. First, that would involve China invading Russia. Because so originally Manchuria used to be a lot bigger, but during the century of humiliation, Russia and China made a deal, which is so everything north of the river Amur is Russia, and everything south is China, and also turning to some other things. That's why that's wrong. So they would harm their own interests because one of China's closest regional allies is Mongolia. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And so that would involve them annexing Mongolia, which, by the way, would also bring war with Russia because Mongolia has really close relationships with both China and Russia.
Yeah.
On top of that, that would also involve them invading India, and on top of that, the Qing dynasty was imperial. So that's why it was the largest dynasty. No Chinese dynasty ever ruled Tibet. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Tibet during the Tang dynasty was its own empire that often went to war with China, and there were only 3 dynasties that ever ruled. 4 that ever ruled Xinjiang: the Han, the Tang, the Yuan, the Mongols, and then the Qing, and then the Yuan and the Yuan and the and the Qing are the only ones to have ever ruled fucking
Xinjiang.
Manchuria.
Oh, okay.
And then so that's the thing. Like, how do you think China got to be such a big country in the Qing dynasty?
Yeah.
Rampant imperialism and even then it used to be a lot smaller. Like, if you go to the homeland, like of where the Han originate, it's actually fucking tiny.
Yeah.
But then during the Han, they conquered the Nanman and Goguryeo and the Xiongnu, and so that's the thing. It would involve them doing 3 stupid things. One, China got that through imperialism.
Mhm.
That would involve them invading China and Russia, which they would not succeed in.
Yeah.
And 3, that would involve them undermining their own government's interests. So that's not going to fucking happen.
I mean, none of this is gonna. There's not gonna be a fucking hot war over Taiwan. There's not gonna be any of this bullshit. America isn't gonna guarantee Taiwan independence. China isn't gonna subordinate Taiwan. It's not a thing. It's not gonna fucking happen.
Yeah, and like we said during the Qing, like we said earlier, the Qing was the only imperial dynasty to have ever ruled Taiwan.
Yeah.
But as far as the Uyghur situation is concerned, Xinjiang has been part of China for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So that is a people who have already
been independent for thousands of years.
Also, who fucking cares? They're a persecuted national minority.
Yeah,
who cares?
Who
cares how long the persecution has gone on? It's persecution.
Yeah, and the thing is, the entire time, Emperor Han Wudi, who conquered them, during the Han, enslaved them, I forget which Tong emperor exactly, because there are a lot of Chinese emperors to keep track of, but whatever Tong emperor conquered it, deported them. The Yuan, since they were Mongols, were actually kind of chill with them, because they were just out for money. They didn't really do much of that. And then you have the Qing, who fucking literally did genocide because they revolted when they were conquered. And then you have the ROC, who crushed the Kamal rebellion, and their attempt at independence, and so yes, it has, but every time it's been ruled, there's been fucking persecution.
Yeah. I mean, black people have been subject to racist persecution in the United States for hundreds of years. It doesn't mean it's good. You fucking idiot.
Of the Communist Party for a very, very long time. So my point is, they're not going to go to another territory and impose their system. The Uyghurs have already been living under the system. Now, if you don't like the details of how that system has been executed so far, it's a separate question. But they have already been living under the system.
That's not a separate question. Those details are Uyghurs have been disappeared into labor camps, and they've been thrown out of their homes for Han settlements. That matters to me as somebody who cares about human freedom.
Yeah.
You can say that that's details.
Yeah.
But to me, that's a little bit more than details.
Yeah, and remember, Haz, if you were in Xinjiang, you could not freely practice your own religion.
Well, yeah.
Why would you trust the colonialists to draw up the borders? Because the Scarborough Shoal, for example, which China claims, is mostly used by Filipino fishermen and is claimed by the Philippines in international courts, which China recognizes.
Those international courts are illegitimate because
I didn't interrupt you.
territorial
I
dispute.
didn't interrupt you.
Those are the same international courts that recognize China as a state.
So it's only illegitimate when it hurts China, basically. If you're gonna have a shit take, can you at least have a consistent shit take?
Yeah.
Territorial dispute between China and the Philippines has been arbitrated in a bilateral matter. It is not under the jurisdiction of the international.
And you want to know what? In the bilateral matter, they lost, and then they just
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did lose.
They came to an agreement with the Philippines. The Philippines didn't like it, so they ran to the UN.
And then the UN said what?
Doesn't matter. China.
Yeah,
but
UN
it doesn't matter
because
the UN has no sovereignty. The UN has no sovereignty to execute. The UN has no sovereignty to execute its authority over bilateral relations.
So UN recognition by the UN when it comes to Taiwan.
No,
that matters.
The UN is what recognizes sovereignty. You fucking idiot. There's no nation on Earth that has sovereignty that it's not credited by the UN. Fucking dumbass.
It's not a unilateral matter. It is a bilateral matter between the Philippines and China, which was arbitrated between China and the Philippines.
Say one more thing.
And then real quick, though, I'll let you some bad, then you'll get the last word. But again, getting back to the whole recognition thing, so it sounds like we could have a follow-on here. But before we go to the next question, go ahead.
The people in Xinjiang do not like being monitored in every aspect of their life, and they don't even deny.
Your own sources admit it's not true anymore.
Let him finish. You'll have the
You're
last word.
saying that my sources say that there have not been an extreme increase in the level of monitoring.
No, they're now claiming it's all done.
You're not even letting me. You didn't even let me talk. Jesus. Okay. So in Xinjiang, these are things that are undisputable fact, even according to the Chinese government. When it comes to the monitoring of street cameras and the everyday life of Uyghurs, the Chinese government has heavily ramped up monitoring them. This has been claimed that this is needed to do for anti-terrorism measures. But that does not mean it's been accepted with open arms by the local population. Another thing is the banning of certain religious, religious activities. Now, specifically,
are you up to date on your sources? Because they're now saying They're now saying they've eased up on Xinjiang.
They're not saying what I'm.
Yes, they have.
Now let me finish.
They said they've eased up surveillance. They've eased up the crackdown.
Wait. So if a sea change happens and the police in the United States stop killing as many black people for no reason. Does that mean they were never killing black people for no reason? Who the fuck cares if it eased up? Like, what the fuck? There's no bearing on the point.
But you're outdated.
I don't care.
You're
You're
time
outdated.
waster. You're time
Wait,
waster.
I'm outdated, yet you're just
Your sources
you're
are out of
Marxist
date.
Leninist, and I'm outdated. That's very funny.
Oh, so Marxism-Leninism is much newer than Anglo-Saxon liberalism from the 16th century.
And what one?
Give me a
Okay,
fucking
yeah,
break.
we're getting off topic in there, so next question.
So my question is to Infrared here, and it seems like your entire moralistic worldview is based on might makes right and material conditions.
I'm a materialist. It's not
Okay.
about might makes right. It's
Okay, but
about
you keep
materialism.
bringing up the fact that the reason that China has the sovereign authority that it does is because it has a monopoly on power. It's able to exert its control over people, et cetera, which is a might makes right argument. So if the material conditions are what basically says what exists and might makes right, then wouldn't it be in America's best interest to go imperialistic again and take over Taiwan in response to China, since that's what China is seeming to want to do?
There is a
One
country
sec,
that
one-
has
one
tried
sec.
this.
One second.
I understand the point of your
Well, I
question.
just want to make it sure for the rest of the
Okay,
audience.
go
All
ahead.
right. So the like how China has been doing with other countries that border it, such as Tibet, such as Vietnam in the 60s or 70s rather, such as like Dylan brought up Myanmar or Burma. So that was
So Tibet has never bordered China. It's always been a part of China.
No, it hasn't.
Now, in regards to other border disputes,
Tang
China has always
Dynasty.
settled these.
Like, here's the thing: the Tang Dynasty had diplomatic relations with the ruler of Tibet. Thus, like, there was if you read the imperial records of China during the Tang.
All right, you're already getting over Infrared's head with the whole reading thing. You need to dumb it down a bit.
Okay, but yeah, so you have documents, because Imperial China was a very bureaucratic government, so we have records, of every imperial official that the emperor appointed. One of these things is ambassador to Tibet.
Yeah.
These matters, not only in a way that's fair, but in a way that overwhelmingly benefits the countries it's negotiating with. China ceded like 80% of its territory in one of its borders with Afghanistan.
No, it
for
didn't.
Example, right? So when China gets
it's the territory that gave to Afghanistan is like the size of like San Marino, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The books and say we have to settle this territorial dispute, China's very generous with negotiations and has proven so. Now, regarding Myanmar and Vietnam, there was a border dispute with Vietnam in the 70s, but that's what it was. It was a border dispute. It wasn't some kind of arbitrary imperialist encroachment. It was a dispute about territory.
Mao supported Pol Pot.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It was basically to try and save the Khmer Rouge regime.
Yeah.
Not be solved diplomatically. Finally, as to the question of might makes right, you can say, why doesn't America just use its might to invade the entire world? There's a country that has tried the precedent of just simply, hey, if we can do it, let's do it. It was the Nazi Germans.
Oh,
tried
okay,
this in
pause.
World War II.
Nazi Germans.
Yeah.
The Nazi Germans.
So 4 of my areas of expertise: Asia, the Civil War, World War II, and the French Revolution. Okay, so while that's eventually what happened, that was not actually the Nazi plan. The plan was supposed to be gradual. Like, it was basically this, So first, they demanded, so first, the Saarland rejoined the Reich when it had its plebiscite, Then they rearmed the Rhineland, Then Austria, then they negotiated with the Sudetenland. They were originally trying to negotiate. I'm not defending the Nazis, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. But the state, of Nazi Germany told the people of Poland, they wanted the Polish corridor. They wanted the little bit of territory that connected the little bit of Polish territory separated E- East Prussia from the rest of Germany.
Mhm.
And this, obviously, since Poland would lose its access to the sea, Poland said no.
Mhm.
So then they invaded for it, and they thought, okay, well, we invaded Poland, so the war will end at that. But then Britain and France declared war on Germany. Then Britain moved into Norway, and it was basically like the actual plan for Nazi rule in Europe was actually supposed to be gradual.
Mhm.
It just kind of spiraled into a big European war, if that makes sense,
Right.
And then they made a bunch of stupid decisions and they lost.
Yeah.
It was proven that this is not a path countries and states can take just to completely circumvene the customs and norms, which are a material reality as well. That are in
Customs
place.
and norms
Because when
aren't material realities, you dipshit. There's no fucking customs and norms, Adam. That's not a fucking thing, you dipshit.
declare war against the entire world, you're going to have a world war and you're going to have the world unite against you. So America can try this. It just wouldn't be very wise.
So just to follow up on that, I'm specifically talking about Taiwan here.
Yeah.
Within regards
It would
to
not be good for America.
Within regards to Taiwan, the Taiwanese people seem to be, as Dylan is saying, against China taking back part of it.
If America,
So isn't it in America's interest, as well as the Taiwanese interest, to join forces to prevent
Why is it in
China?
our interest?
Because of things like Dylan said, with the chip manufacturing, the territorial
There will be
water
no
disputes,
alteration to the chip
etc.
manufacturing.
It's not in America's interest to go to a hot war with China over Taiwan. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Manufacturing under.
Like Taiwan can produce whatever it wants for the United States, but China is still the world's factory.
Yeah.
So there's no point.
Yeah, and the thing is, they will still trade.
Yeah.
All the goods that are produced in Taiwan will now be under the rule of China.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it would actually probably be in America's best interests to let it happen, honestly.
No.
Chinese.
But we have examples with
China's already
Tibet,
replicating
etc.
Taiwan's chip industry at home anyway.
Well, but that gives more power to China. And I know
Right.
that you
Wait,
like
wouldn't that
but
justify
we
us
don't
having
like
it
that.
more? Because then we would want our own ability to take in chips from a separate country.
We already can do that. We don't need to invade Taiwan to do that.
50%.
You don't need to
50% of the world.
invade. If America wants to replicate the chips that Taiwan produces, it can do so in the same way that China
by
does.
trading and recognizing them as a sovereign nation.
No, because China doesn't do that, and yet it's able to make its own
So-
domestic chips. This is a dead-end argument.
Let me ask you about something, because you said that they always resolve these conflicts fairly. Now, if you said most of the time, maybe it would be easier, but the Scarborough Shoal was very self-evident, where they took their ships, they put them on the Scarborough Shoal, then told the Filipinos, you want to fish here, this is what has been historically your fishing territory, you got to just come to the table and agree with us on all this stuff. Then the Filipinos come to the table after the United Nations says, hey, you're a member state and you agreed to follow these rules, China. What about all this? China just disregarded them. The international organization, which you use as a justification to say what is and isn't a nation state due to that international
I didn't.
recognition. Yes, you did. International recognition was part of your
I
argument.
said it's a factor. It's
Yes,
not
and
the
this was
determining
the United
factor.
Nations is definitely considered.
The United Nations is not the determining
It's
factor
not
as far
the
as
determining factor.
the
It's one of
international
determining
community is
factors.
concerned.
One of the determining
Yes, it is. The United Nations is what governs the international community, you dipshit.
factors on the international
China has
community.
contested
The UN is part of the international.
China has
community.
contested the jurisdiction of the UN in that case, in that hearing, because it was settled bilaterally. And if you want to know if did China act unjustly, China is simply returning to the status quo that existed before the British arbitrarily came with their guns and their opium to carve up the
Well, what if
Qing
that-
dynasty.
And then later gave Hong Kong to Taiwan.
And by the way, it wasn't just the British. It was okay, so it was, if I remember correctly, it was a lot of places, but the ones that I know are Britain, Portugal, France
was also involved, yeah.
France, Japan, Austria, Hungary, Germany, the U.S. and Italy. There's probably more. It was a lot more than Britain. It was basically every large European country.
Yeah.
What if the Qing
alongside the Qing Empire, alongside the rest of the European
So
colonial
what if the
powers.
Qing Empire was, an empire, and therefore a lot of the territory it invaded, it shouldn't actually have had control of?
I've actually debated with you about this. You're so historically illiterate that you don't understand the structure of pre-modern empires and the manner by which they went about territorial conquest, annexation, assimilation.
So pre-modern empires were better than modern empires? What? What are you doing? What?
Entirely different from European colonialism.
That doesn't mean it was good.
You don't
Yeah,
understand
that doesn't mean it
you
wasn't
are
imperialism.
simply historically illiterate.
With that, we're coming up against your time block here. So did you have a question? One final question. So go ahead, and if you stand between the cameras so the mics can pick it up.
Yeah, my question is, well, for both of you, and America, we're known for having really Chad energy from separating from Britain. So why not respect the Chad energy of the Taiwanese and let them separate from China? Why try to stick up for the guy who lost?
Because the circumstances are entirely different between the material conditions that gave rise to the American independence and the so-called independence movement within Taiwan. Now, China is a 5,000-year-long civilization. United States broke with the UK, which colonized the New World very recently.
Okay, and
why is time a fucking factor at all? Who cares how long it's been fucking happening? If British imperialism existed for 5,000 years, that wouldn't make it any better.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, and by the way, if you look at what China looked like 5,000 years ago, i.e. the Shang dynasty, it was tiny.
Yeah.
Well, it was still decent size. It was, but compared to what China is now, it was like they didn't even go south of the river Yangtze.
Yeah.
Because the people of America became indigenized and nationally, culturally, civilizationally different from the people in the United Kingdom.
What the fuck are you indigenized? We killed the indigenous people, you fucking freak. What the fuck are you talking about? Indigenized. Shut the fuck up. Holy
centuries and centuries of indigenization. This process has not occurred whatsoever in Taiwan. In Taiwan, the Taiwanese people and the Chinese people are the same people. They engage in trade, marriage, personal relations, cultural exchange, the same movies and TV they watch, the same music they listen to. They're the same.
They don't have the same culture. Not even the people in. Okay, so I want you. Okay, so I want you to look at a businessman, living in Shanghai, and his family and people that he knows, and the culture that he was raised in Shanghai. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want you to go to some mountain outside of Lhasa in Tibet, and look at a monk that has lived in this monastery since he was 15. Okay.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell me that is the same culture.
Yeah.
Under the different ideological governments.
The Taiwanese people disagree with him. They identify culturally now more as Taiwanese. All the polling data shows that. Also, the reason why they don't like the Chad Taiwanese is because they're soying out.
All right.
Alrighty then. Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to thank both of you for making this a little more lively, entertaining. Stay tuned for further information on the boxing match. But,
Hell yeah.
Appreciate everybody's.
Look at him. He's like, oh, fuck, I got to box this guy. Did you see his face?
He looked very, I think he knew that he looked like a fucking idiot that whole time.
Yeah. Well, hey. So Infrared knows he's an idiot now. Who knows? He may improve.
I don't know. I think he always has that little voice in the back of his head that says, hey, you're kind of stupid. But,
Yeah. Oh man, this has been a lot of fun, Piper. We got to do this more often.
Yeah, I'm up for it. I hope everyone else enjoyed the stream. And yeah, I'll just end it now.
And I'm drunk. Yay.
Dude,
See ya.
awesome.
See you
All right.
guys.
See
Bye.
ya, everybody.
See ya.